If I was a doctor and could prescribe 3 things that would instantly make you a better deer hunter, this is what they'd be. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit that little bell icon so you can make sure to be notified every single time when I upload a new video. To put a little context behind why I created this video and ultimately why I started this channel in the first place is because the first 10 to 12 years of my hunting career, it was absolute frustration. It was literally the definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result. I finally said enough was enough, and I started to seek out mentorship from people that have already done what I was trying to do. I started to put myself out there, meet new people, and surround myself with people that were better hunters than I was. I also started to dive in hunting forums, YouTube channels, podcasts, and books, anything that I could do to condense that learning curve as greatly as possible. Through all of that learning and the learning that I continue to do, there was 3 main things that changed absolutely everything for me. Actually, I'll throw in a bonus if you stick around to the end. So 4 things that changed everything in my hunting career and have led to greater and greater results as each season goes on. So the first thing that will instantly make you a better deer hunter is to understand where deer bed and why. This one thing alone will allow you to look at a satellite image of a property you've never even stepped foot on and have a pretty good idea of where the deer are. Bedding areas and buck beds are both terms that are thrown around a lot, and I think for a lot of people they're this esoteric idea that only a few people truly understand. But if you really dive into it and have a desire to learn how deer bed, why they bed where they do, how bucks and does interact with each other, everything is gonna change for you. Instead of just guessing where you should set up in the woods and where the deer might come from, you're gonna really be able to pinpoint where the deer are, what direction they're gonna be traveling, and your success rates are gonna go through the roof. Now there's levels of understanding when it comes to deer bedding, but you owe it to yourself to at least learn the basics specific to your geographic location and terrain type. I try not to speak in absolutes regarding anything hunting related, but one thing you can always bet on is deer are gonna bed in a place that allows them to use their senses to their advantage. They either wanna be able to see, smell, or hear approaching danger so they can escape to safety. This is where you're gonna start seeing the main differences between bucks and does. Does are typically gonna bed in their doe family groups where safety in numbers is the name of the game. In my experience, does tend to rely heavily on their sight, and not just the sight of themselves, but the sight of the other does within the groups. So they'll bed in a circular fashion, all facing different directions, all being able to look in different directions and alert each other of danger. Bucks, on the other hand, tend to be more solitary creatures, so they're not just gonna rely on one sense. They either wanna be able to see a long ways and smell what's coming behind them, they wanna be able to smell what's coming and hear if there's approaching danger, or a combination of all 3. In a second, I'll talk about the process of how I began to start learning about deer bedding, how I really started to put the puzzle pieces together. But first, I'll give a quick overview of how deer like to bed within different terrain types. The first terrain type, and the one that I personally think is the easiest to figure out, is marsh and swamp bedding. In a lot of situations, you can simply look at a satellite image of an area, and if you see a tree out there in the middle of a marsh or out there in the middle of a swamp, you can generally guess that that ground's gonna be high enough, it's gonna be dry enough for those deer to actually bed. And the best part about it is the travel direction is going to be relatively predictable. What I've found is a lot of times these beds are not wind dependent, meaning they're going to bed there regardless of what wind direction. I do think they get up earlier if they have the wind in their favor, or might move a little bit better if they have the wind in their favor. A lot of times you can sneak in really close to these beds and get set up, making them an excellent spot to target during the early season. The second terrain type is farm country. Big crop fields, usually there's just a little bit of cover, small stands of woods, and deer, naturally being edge creatures, like to be on the edge of that cover, being able to overlook a big open area so they can see predators approaching from a long ways away and escape into the cover. These beds often are wind dependent, meaning that the wind is going to be blowing over their back so the deer can smell anything that's coming behind them while being able to overlook a large area and see predators approaching, danger approaching, be able to get out of there. For the does, I do think it's a little less wind dependent. They're gonna depend on more of the eyesight of the does in the family group, and usually they're gonna be directly adjacent to their afternoon food source. The third common terrain type that you hear people talk about is hill country bedding, and this is something that I'm really coming to have a love-hate relationship with. The bedding is extremely predictable, but it's very technical how to actually execute the hunt. Bucks are generally going to bed on a leeward point so they can smell everything coming over their backs behind them. They can overlook a huge area down below them. And as the sun starts to heat up the valley floor below, the thermals are going to rise and they're going to be able to smell everything in front of them as well. It's making it extremely tricky to get close to these deer. The best part about hill country bedding is a lot of times just by looking at a topo map, you can estimate where the deer are going to be bedding based off of the wind direction for that day. I understand not every terrain type falls into one of those 3 categories, but I hope you get the point. In order to maximize your hunting success, you need to understand where the deer are bedding. There's a lot of really good information on the Hunting Beast forum about deer bedding and buck bedding if you want to check that out. Dan Info also has a DVD series that does a really good job illustrating how deer bed in these different terrains, as well as how you should try to hunt them. The Hunting Public YouTube channel also has some really good content on it regarding buck bedding. But the number one way to learn how deer bed is to get in the field and go scout. Get boots on the ground, go explore the areas that you hunt. So now that you're a master in deer bedding, the second thing that I would prescribe you to instantly make you a better hunter is to understand the wind. There is a ton of controversy when it comes to scent control, and I personally believe that it should only be supplemental, and ultimately you should be trying to play the wind. I do think it's important to minimize our impact in the woods, eliminate scent as much as possible, but you're truly never going to beat a deer's nose. Don't let your scent blow into the bedding areas or blow to where the deer is going to be coming from. Now, understanding the wind goes hand in hand with understanding how deer bed. If you understand how the wind works, you're going to be able to better predict where the deer are going to be bedding. If you're consistently hunting with the wind in your favor and you're not seeing deer, it's more than likely because the deer are not actually bedding where you think they're bedding. They're going to bed where they actually have the wind advantage. So the best thing to do is hunt with a just off wind in a lot of cases, where the wind is right for the deer. It's coming over their back. They can see out in front of them, and you kind of come in from the side. So you're flirting with danger in a lot of ways because your wind is blowing right towards the deer, but just off. You're just off of where that deer is going to be able to smell you. You're probably thinking, really? I need to understand the wind? That sounds like a very stupid thing to say. But the best way to truly visualize what the wind is doing is to consistently be dropping milkweed when you're scouting, when you're walking into your stand, and when you're actually hunting, so you can see what the wind is actually doing. The wind might be forecasted to come out of the west, but you didn't factor in that you're hunting right next to a lake. Now when the sun starts to go down, that body of water starts to have a thermal pull, and the wind starts changing directions on you. Well, the only way you're really going to be able to visualize that and see what's happening is to be dropping milkweed as you're hunting. Some people are extreme enough that if the wind starts to change or the thermals aren't pulling exactly how they expected, they'll actually get down and move to another area to minimize the impact on an area that's probably going to result in a low odds hunt anyways. I personally don't move a lot once I'm actually set up, but I do like to see what the wind is doing so I can learn from that in future situations. At the end of the day, if you understand how the wind works, one, you're going to be able to better predict where those deer are bedding, and two, you're going to be able to set up on those deer in a way that the wind is not going to blow into the bedding area. It's not going to blow into where you think the deer are going to come from, and your hunts are going to be a lot more productive, and you're going to get winded by less deer. Personally, I think the trickiest thing about learning how the wind works is thermals. And I'll actually link a couple resources down below in the description of this video so you can better visualize how thermals work, and hopefully it helps you understand it a little bit better. Now, the third thing that I would prescribe to you to instantly make you a better deer hunter is to get mobile. Has this ever happened to you? You go set your preset stand, whether it's a ladder stand or a lock on, and you see a lot of deer, but they're just out of range. So what do you do next time? You go back and hunt the same stand in hopes that next time the deer come just a little bit closer, but ultimately you find yourself just out of the game. Well, that's how I spent the first 10 or so years of hunting, and my results were absolutely piss poor. By getting a mobile system, it opened up an entire new world to me. Whether it's a climber stand, a tree stand and sticks, a saddle and sticks, whatever it is, find a way to get mobile. By being mobile and understanding how deer bed and how the wind works, instead of waiting for the deer to come to you, you can go on the offense and go to them. Instead of seeing bucks cruise 150 yards away consistently, next time you go hunting, you can simply go set up down there and have a chance at those bucks. By getting mobile, you're gonna have more first-time sits, you're gonna catch more deer by surprise, and you're gonna have unlimited hunting options. Out of the 6 bucks that I've shot over the last 3 seasons in 3 different states, 4 of those bucks were a first-time sit, and the other 2 were on the second time in. The more times that you hunt a specific area, your chances of killing a mature buck are going to dramatically decrease. Even if you're hunting private land and have a ton of preset stands that you can bounce around to, I would still encourage you to get a mobile setup so that way you can adjust on the fly and move in for the kill. Here I'll throw in another shameless plug. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, consider doing so. One of the next couple videos that I post is going to outline my entire mobile setup, what equipment I use, how I transport it into the woods, and how I set it up. The other thing that changed when I got a mobile setup was that it allowed me to start hunting more public land. Mobile setup paired with a good app like Onyx Hunt opens up an incredible amount of opportunities all across the country. I still hunt a mix of private and public, but even when I'm on private land, I still use my mobile hunting system to move around, ambush deer, get first-time sits, and be able to make real-time adjustments on the fly as the season goes on. If you're new to the mobile hunting scene, I personally recommend that you get a set of lightweight climbing sticks as well as a nice lightweight tree stand, or what I prefer, a tree saddle. And I'll actually link a review of the saddle that I ran for most of the season down below in the description if you want to check that out. And finally, the fourth and the bonus thing that I would prescribe to you to instantly make you a better deer hunter is to make you fall in love with scouting. I would argue that the number one thing that all of the top hunters all across the United States have in common, regardless of geographic location, regardless of hunting style, is that they scout more than they hunt. To maximize your success in the deer woods, you need to constantly be scouting, both in the off season and during season. This is going to allow you to understand where deer bed and when, how the wind works, and then use your mobile system to capitalize at the fullest and move in for the kill. Scouting is another thing that can be confusing to a lot of people. Either they don't understand what they should be looking for or what the sign means when they do find it, and they have a hard time putting together the puzzle pieces and figure out how they can actually hunt. And I'll actually link another video down below in the description about how I actually scout a new property, how I tackle it, what I'm looking for, and what those things actually mean. So let's summarize. If you can figure out how deer bed and why, understand how the wind works, get a mobile system and get really efficient, and then fall in love with scouting, the results come hunting season are gonna be night and day from where you were before. If you've made it to this part in the video, I wanna hear from you. What is one piece of advice that you would give to new hunters? Let me know down below in the comments, and hopefully it helps somebody else have a more successful season next year. But hopefully this video helped. Like the video, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and make sure you're checking back each week because there's gonna be new content every single week here in 2021.